All right, guys, so welcome back into another NFL DFS video. Got the first one of the year here for you. It sucks that we couldn't have that NFL preseason DFS coverage for you that, everyone's come to enjoy pretty much, but I'm looking forward to this slate. Obviously, it's going to be fun to kick it off. I will say, it does suck not having enough that preseason data that we are used to having to go off of. So a lot of week one is just going to be learning. We're going to be watching a lot of film after week one, but there are going to be some key plays here that I do like to look at. I know a lot of people are going to be here from the PGA DFS videos, but some are going to be some new viewers here that, don't care for golf, which I don't know why you wouldn't, but I just want to give you guys kind of the breakdown of how I like to, do DFS. So pretty much I like to gear my content up for you guys. I want you guys to be successful each and every week. A lot of the times the content that's out there is geared up for you to have success, like rarely, like 1% of the time. But when you do, it is going to be a highly successful week. I don't really like to go that approach. I want to give you guys content that's going to be able to help you guys out each and every week, give you guys those plays that are going to help you consistently be able to cash. That's where we go with the, keep cashing crew. But just going over my basic NFL DFS strategy for quarterback, I like to pay down it pretty much as I possibly can for a quarterback that's going to be able to 3X. And I'm going to talk about two quarterbacks that are absolutely trash this week that are probably going to 3X, and you guys are probably going to hate the picks there, but they're going to make a lot of sense. And just kind of throwing that out there. For running backs, I really want to look for at least 20 opportunities per running back. I typically like to play 3 in my main build, so that'd be one of them in the flex as well. For receiver, I like to look for at least 7 targets, and then tight end is kind of trying to stack it with the quarterback if possible, and then defense is kind of just trying to get lucky. Typically like to punt on that. I will say pretty much the specialty with 9 to 5. Had a ton of success here at the Super Bowl and a couple of games last year with the Patriots and the Chiefs and Thanksgiving slate or showdown slates. And that's going to be 9 to 5 NFL DFS memberships, exclusive content right there. So anyone that's on that 9 to 5 page is going to get that content. I will try to put a video out there on YouTube for some of those slates, but really dominated on those last year, and that's kind of the bread and butter because you're able to separate yourself, and those are kind of the easy ones I have a pretty nice strategy that goes with those. But let's get into the picks for this week. I will start off with the running backs here. So Austin Eckler, I do like a ton. Now, yes, if you guys can pay up for Christian McCaffrey, obviously I think you should do that. But I want to talk about Austin Eckler because obviously the first few weeks of the season last year without Melvin Gordon, he was a stud. He averaged well over 20 DK points per game. Actually, he averaged barely over 20 DK points on this season. So with Melvin Gordon gone, without any real competition, I know a lot of people are trying to talk out Joshua Kelly, and he might be the RB2 there for the Chargers, but I don't think he really poses a threat. So Austin Eckler at 7K, I like a ton as a play. I think he's going to get around 20 DK points once again this week. So Austin Eckler, he's going to go in the bail for now. After that, I really do like Josh Jacobs going against the Carolina Panthers. Now, yes, Carolina Panthers, they had that green 32, which means they were the worst run defense last year. And I want to point that out because that's last year. Okay, we haven't seen these teams in preseason. Preseason actually tells us a decent amount about what these teams are going to look like. We don't know if they're going to be that bad, but it doesn't seem like they made that much of a change. So I do think Josh Jacobs is going to be a great play. I think he's going to get a little bit better this year as well. He's going to be a solid play here at 6.8K on DraftKings. I do think he's going to get right around 17 DK points as his floor, but also I think he could have upside to go for 25 DK points. It's just a matter or not of if he gets in that end zone. So I like him a ton as a running back as well. And then going down a little bit lower, there are a couple that I want to touch on. So Chris Carson is pretty much the last workhorse running back on the slate that we can pay for. He's going against the Atlanta Falcons, which that matchup doesn't really worry me too much. We know he's going to get the touches. He's going to get at least 15 to probably 25 touches. It really just depends on how the game goes, but he's going to get around 18 total opportunities no matter what. So Chris Carson to pay for around 18 opportunities, which an opportunity is a target and or a rushing attempt. So I really like Chris Carson at that price point. So those are kind of going to be my 3 go-to running backs this week as of right now. There's a ton of news that still needs to come out. Miles Sanders here, it doesn't look like he's going to play this week. We don't know yet. He was limited in practice on Wednesday, but if he's out, I'm going to have to make some changes to my build because Boston Scott is pretty cheap here at 4.8. So he'd be an interesting play if Miles Sanders is out. Obviously, Boston Scott went for 13.5 against Washington last year as well. Then probably going to be everyone's favorite pick down the slow. I do kind of call it out. Antonio Gibson. So Antonio Gibson, I don't mind as a play, but you might be able to go with maybe even J.D. McKissick. So J.D. McKissick is on the unofficial depth chart as the RB1 for them. But I think they're trying to go with Antonio Gibson. We saw last year they're not so quietly talking up Darius Geis before he got injured in week 1. They were trying to make Darius Geis the guy. Geis had like 14 touches after the first 18 minutes of the game. I think we could expect the same with Antonio Gibson here as well. So if you kind of wanted to fit Christian McCaffrey in there, you could probably take Josh Jacobs or Chris Carson on your build and then go down to Antonio Gibson. So now moving on to receivers. So I don't think we have to pay up for Michael Thomas this week. I just don't think we have to. You get Devontae Adams, who's essentially the exact same player as Michael Thomas for a significantly cheaper amount in a matchup that he's been able to dominate. He went for 26 and also 20 DK points against the Vikings last year. And I think that's going to continue again this year. Towards the end of the year, he was averaging over double-digit targets per game. And obviously the Packers didn't really address the receiver situation. So Devontae Adams at that price point, I think is a good starting point for your receivers. Now, if you want to do a little bit fair and balanced approach with your receivers, you could do that as well. I do like DJ Chark, just want to mention that in passing, but Kenny Galladay I do like a ton. He's one of the best receivers in the game, and we're getting him at 6.2. That just seems like a really cheap price point. And I should mention, 28 DK points against Chicago last year and 14.7 DK points. Obviously, we'd be happy with the 14.7, but we have the potential to get over 20 DK points at this price point. I like that a ton. It seems like a safe play as well. It seems like his floor is probably 10 DK points with upwards of a lot higher. Julian Edelman, I think he might be a kind of a popular option. I will say, Miami is not as bad of a defense as they were last year, and I think they're going to be a solid defense. I will mention them a little bit later on in this video, but I think Julian Edelman is kind of a lock for 10 DK points, and I think, the targets are going to be there, the receptions are going to be there. I think he's going to be a fine play at that price point. I think he's a, kind of a good starting spot for your receivers. Then going a little bit lower, Terry McLaurin, I like a ton. His two best games last year were against the Eagles. Now, once again, I don't think that the Eagles are going to be as bad defensively as they were last year, but we just don't know that. We haven't seen them this year. But 26 and 27 DK points in his first two matchups against the Eagles last year. I like him a ton at this price point as well. He kind of really came on at the end of the year as a consistent fantasy producer with those targets. Maybe Haskins was trying to force feed him. It seems like that has been happening in camp as well. So Terry McLaurin at that price point, I like him a ton. Going lower, so Anthony Miller. Anthony Miller is going to be a pretty interesting receiver for us to target this week. You saw when Taylor Gabriel was out last year that Anthony Miller really stepped up. And those were the weeks that he did really well. When Gabriel got back and was healthy, Miller went away. Obviously, Gabriel is not there this year, so I expect Miller to kind of do that same thing that he did when Gabriel was out. At $5K, that's not a bad price point for him. He did also have one of his huge weeks against the Detroit Lions where he scored 20 DK points while Gabriel was out. I do want to mention Jamison Crowder had his two best games against the Buffalo Bills, 20 and 24 DK points. I know in one of the podcasts earlier during the quarantine, had a buddy come on and he pointed out that a lot of the teams in the division really struggle against covering receivers in the slot. Obviously, Crowder operates a lot in the slot. He's really appealing to me at 5.2 on DraftKings for a guy where we've seen him go off for 20 DK points in this matchup. So that's kind of going to be the receiver look for me. I will mention there's a couple of different ones. There's one sneaky one. Cole Beasley, Steven Sims Jr., I think are going to be safe plays for like 12 to 10 DK points. I'm perfectly fine with that. Then I will mention Greg Ward. He's going to be the receiver number 3 or number 2. Maybe J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is the number 3. We don't exactly know that yet, but we saw that they had to force feed him targets a ton last year. That might happen again until Alshon Jeffrey is back and healthy. Really depends on Rager here. I don't know if he's going to practice. There's a lot of news that's still out there. I do think Deshaun Jackson is going to be an interesting play. Now, I do want to point out one value play for you. Sneaky. I don't think it's going to be good. But if for some reason David Montgomery is ruled out, not for some reason, David Montgomery is looking like he's going to be ruled out, but I could see Cordero Patterson being used as the running back role a little bit. And DraftKings didn't let us go below 4K for running backs for week 1 because a lot of news could change and whatnot. That's fine, but we might actually get one. Patterson at 3.4 in the receiver spot, kind of a punt play there. That's what that would be to free up, like maybe if you wanted to go empty Christian McCaffrey, you do that by playing Patterson. If David Montgomery's ruled out, I could see him getting 4 carries because they didn't sign anyone. The Bears did not sign a veteran at all. It's either going to be Ryan Nall, it's going to be a ton of Tyreek Cohen, or Patterson's going to get involved a little bit, and I would expect him to get involved a little bit. And that's probably why they didn't sign a vet. And then moving on to quarterbacks. So I mentioned there's 2 that people are going to hate, but I'll start off with Carson Wentz. So Carson Wentz, I think, is pretty much the lock at this price point. He is the lowest value quarterback that you can go with that probably is going to 20 DK play this week. You look at what he did last year against them, 22 and then 28. I think that's going to be kind of the floor for him this year. He should be healthy. I know a lot of his receiving targets aren't as healthy. Miles Sanders is a little bit banged up, but Carson Wentz at that price point, if you can fit him into your builds, you should. I don't think you have to go above him this week. And then talking about players that I think are going to 3X that are kind of cheap. Mitchell Trubisky is going to be the first one. You look at what he did against Detroit last year, 19.7. And I think that was the only one because I think he was injured. Or no, here it is. Yeah, so 19.7 and 27.9. His 2 best games last year were pretty much against the Detroit Lions. So I do think that the Bears are going to try to get him involved a little bit more with his feet, especially if David Montgomery is out. I do like Trubisky a decent amount. He doesn't have to do much to 3X at this price point. That's going to be the key thing. But if we want to go a little bit lower, talk about another bad quarterback. And that's the thing. It's like, who cares if they're a bad quarterback in the NFL? If they're scoring points for you in fantasy football, it doesn't matter. So Dwayne Haskins, all he has to do really to hit value is put up 12 DK points. Now to 3X, he has to get to 15 DK points, which I think he's going to do that. Look at what he did last year against them. This was his only good game. It was 20 DK points. I don't expect that to happen. I really don't. I don't think Haskins is a good quarterback. Obviously, he wasn't ready last year. Everyone saw that. Maybe he got a little bit better. We'll see. Maybe Scary Terry can break off a touchdown. We'll see. But I just don't mind him at this price point. I think he's going to get to around 14 DK points. I think he's going to be a little bit better than he was last year. So I don't mind him as a play at that price point. He kind of allows you to pay up for Christian McCaffrey if you want to do that. Pay up for Austin Eckler as well. Pay up for Devontae Adams if that's the route that you want to go. You could probably fit a stud tight end into your builds as well. And then moving on to tight end. So I did mention it. I think if you can pay up for Mark Andrews or George Kittle, you should do so. I also don't mind Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert. Those guys are fine. I will mention Dawson Knox. I think he's going to be some guy that you should watch. I think he is extremely athletic. He has all the tools to succeed and kind of be an elite tight end. He just needs to be a lot more consistent. He makes a lot of bad errors, especially in blocking assignments and just on passing routes and catches as well. So if he's a little bit more consistent, he could really be a force. But Jack Doyle, I like him a ton. 3.6. Phillip Rivers loves to target the tight ends. It's kind of his go-to. I think Jack Doyle is going to be a safe passing target if you are kind of trying to punt. That'd be the starting point. But I also want to bring up Logan Thomas. It seems like Logan Thomas has been kind of the security blanket for Dwayne Haskins. And if you guys haven't noticed, I kind of love the Philadelphia Washington football team stack. I think that's the easiest game to stack, and it could yield a ton of points. I don't think either of them are going to be good on defense. So Logan Thomas, I do like. You're really only trying to get 5 DK points out of him. That's really all you're trying to get. I think he could get around 4 targets, and as the starting tight end for the Redskins, they do typically give their starting tight ends around 4 targets per game. So as kind of a punt play at the tight end spot, which happens. Sometimes people have to do that because they really like the rest of their build. That'd be the one I would go with. Then just talking about defense. So I'm just going to bring up the bottom 2. So I already mentioned that I don't mind the Dolphins. Obviously, the Patriots did a lot of house cleaning this year. They're not going to be as good as they typically were. But the Dolphins had 11 and 3 points against them last year, which obviously that's not great, but they didn't go negative against the Patriots last year. And that's really all you're looking for minimum salary defense. And I'm going to say it. I don't think they'll go negative. I think they are going to score right around 7 points. And I also do want to mention the Jets. So the Jets really dominated the Bills defensively for DFS purposes last year. You see that 18 and 14 DK points. Josh Allen although I do like him as a fantasy quarterback, he does make a ton of mistakes. You can kind of count on him to make a couple in a game. I don't think the Jets are going to go negative, and I think they have a strong chance to get around 10 DK points. So that's going to be the picks for this week. I do kind of want to change up the style a little bit of these videos as it goes on, but those are going to be the core plays for this week. Obviously, I'm going to make adjustments on the 905 Sports NFL DFS membership page. So if you guys are interested in seeing those adjustments as they come out throughout the week, definitely check out that. It's $10 a month. Like I said, I gear up the content for you guys. I want you guys to win. So if you guys are interested in that, the link is in the description below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please give me a like and subscribe. And as always, guys, let's keep cashing. All right, thanks, we're out.